I did something like that made me feel stupid the other day.
You hate when you feel stupid too.
I do hate when I feel stupid because
you get down on yourself. You're like, why did I do that? I'm such an idiot.
An idiot, man. I'm an idiot. Damn Napoleon. I'm an idiot. So I needed to order some micro SD cards for our OnePlus 360 1-inch. And the issue with the 160, whatever, it takes a specific UHS 1 card, but not UHS 2 micro SD card. And so,
which is very odd, by the way. Sorry to interrupt, but you're recording 6K 30p video.
Are you sorry, Stephen?
And it's recording 2 sensors at the same time. So why would it not take the fastest UHS 2 cards on the market right now?
It doesn't make any sense how they've designed it. So basically they've designed it, and when I was putting this Lexar card in there that's faster, I was only getting 15 seconds of record time. So Steven basically just got my face before it stopped recording. We actually did use some of the footage, which was good, at the baseball game.
The odd part is that the second clip that you recorded for like a good 5 minutes. And then every clip after that recorded for only 15 seconds.
So that doesn't make any sense.
Along with the first clip you recorded was only for 15 seconds. So it's very odd that one clip randomly in the middle worked and the rest just stopped recording after 15 seconds.
Just so weird. But anyway, I went looking for cards to buy. And generally I go to like B&H to look at cards. Brandon at Allen's Camera, which is where I go and shop for everything, doesn't really get as good of a deal on cards as a B&H or Amazon at this point. So it's not even, they sell them. And
do they sell every brand?
They sell a lot of brands, but certain things they can be competitive with, and other times they can't be competitive with certain things. I'm sure they have memory cards. I just didn't even ask because it's just easier to get a card shipped to my house than it is for me to go drive there. Even though I went and drove there, it only takes 26 minutes each way. Still, it was just easier to do this because I didn't need it right away. But they had 256 gigabyte cards at B&H. They're 256 gigabyte, 190 megabyte write, 130 write, and 190 read, and it comes with an adapter, which we don't need. Now, I looked at B&H and then I looked at Amazon, and I'm like, well, they're a little less expensive on Amazon, and I'll have them sooner. And then you and I were like, wait a second, is it coming from the SanDisk store? And we're like, yes, it's coming from the SanDisk store. Oh,
well, it was fulfilled by Amazon, but coming from the SanDisk store.
Yeah, so anyway, I was like, all right, it's coming from the SanDisk store, but it's fulfilled by Amazon. Let's just try it because we've heard that there's been issues with fraudulent cards. So I placed the order on Amazon. Monday comes around, and I think I'm waiting for my delivery from B&H, and I go on B&H to see that the cards are still in my cart because I didn't check out. I'm like, well, I didn't check out. Why didn't I check out? I thought I did this Friday. So I order the damn card, 2 more cards, only to realize I already ordered them from Amazon, and they came to my other spot, and I didn't realize it. So now I have 4 of these cards. Now there is a difference.
Really?
In packaging.
Huh.
And I wrote B&H on the back of the ones that are B&H in case I decide to return to Amazon.
Interesting.
I've tried to figure out what the differences are, and I finally got down to
Is it just older packaging versus new, or?
So I thought that too, but it comes down to the bottom. Well, on the front it's different. It says #1 selling card on that one, and on this other card it says made with 20% recycled materials, which doesn't help me buy a freaking card. I don't give a shit. I mean, that's not the thing you're supposed to say in this world. Is that, I mean, yes, I care about the environment, but Jesus Christ, you think I'm going to buy this memory card because it says uses 20% less fucking plastic? The answer, 25% less material. The answer is no. I think the difference is it says Europe. I think they're European cards on the ones that came from Amazon because it says Europe on the bottom and not US.
Is that considered like gray market stuff, or?
Well, it doesn't really technically matter, but maybe I think I may send an email to our person over at SanDisk and be like,
is this legitimate? Yeah.
I just want to verify because it has a QR code on the back, and I tried to use a QR code, but it launches a phone. It launches just a number.
Have you looked at the physical cards themselves? Like, do they look any different?
I didn't take. I did. I used my camera phone to zoom in, to see the macro, and they look exactly the same. Everything looks the same. The package printing and everything is basically the same except for those little differences, and there's a QR code on the back of the one.
That's what scares me about buying from Amazon, though. You never know who you're getting it from. Half the time they claim they're SanDisk USA, and they're coming from Europe, and probably, again, not that it matters
UK, Canada.
for this.
It says UK Canada on the back. It doesn't have ours has the FCC. We're gonna have to dig in deeper. I don't think people really want to listen to this. This is RAWtalk episode number 12 of the reboot. We thank you guys very much for listening. Episodes become live midnight on Fridays. Maybe a little sooner. Steven realized when he posted them that even though we tell it to go live at midnight on our podcasting network software, it doesn't actually get out into the Spotify and the rest of the ecosystem, Spotify and iTunes
Stitcher,
and wherever else you listen,
wherever else,
until later. We'll probably
Each
just set
service
it
takes a good amount of time to process. So Stitcher might take 2-3 hours to process and not get posted till 3 a.m. and Spotify is say 12:30.
Yeah, we may just put it up like 2 hours early. We're not
Like
going to tell you
10.
that secret.
Yeah.
Maybe that will happen. But how was your bachelor party weekend with your friend's bachelor party?
Oh yeah, it was good. It was good. You would have absolutely hated it because it
Why,
was
Steven?
filled with tons of alcohol and loud music and drunken people and great time.
I hate all of that.
We did a nice brewery tour with a limo bus and
I
it
hate
was
that
fun.
too. I hate brewery tours. I'm like, why can't you just pick a brewery and stay there? Why do you have to go to multiple stops?
It's kind of what we ended up doing anyway. We went to the Poconos near Lake Harmony, and there was this one, the first brewery we went to was awesome. It had to be on maybe 3-4 acres of land, and the actual tasting room was in a certain part of the property. And then if you walked maybe 200 feet over, you had this giant recreational area where they had like a mini baseball field, bocce ball, they had pickleball.
Are you saying
they
that's
had,
for little people, Steven?
Well, obviously they can't put these full giant courts, they have limited space, so...
I love pickleball.
But we ended up going to another brewery after, and we ended up just circling back to the first one because it was such a good time and just a great atmosphere and great everything.
Anyway, so you circled back there. I don't understand the whole let's stay at the bar. Let's go to multiple bars. It makes absolutely no sense to me.
Well, it's usually to try out the different beers and to...
I don't drink
that's
beer.
What it's for. It's not just to get... It's one, to get loaded, but two, it's also to try a different variety of beers that aren't around us. So...
I don't drink beer. Anyway, we've got multiple topics to talk about. We talked about the sand discards. Oh, and by the way, even though I mentioned these topics at the beginning, it doesn't actually mean we will get to every single topic because I realized we didn't do that last week, which is fine. But let's see. We got something else about our documentary not being posted. Create NYC postponed. American Airlines had a bomb scare, but it wasn't really a bomb scare. It was a photographer with a camera. We're going to talk more about that. Tony Northrup had something to say about the Z9, and my NASA launch is coming up. And a few other things that we have one user question here we'll get to. But first, let's start with, we asked you guys to put up comments on iTunes to give us a 5-star rating or whatever rating you think we deserve. And Steven,
Five.
there were, let's see, 3 new ones that came in, and we will probably potentially read these if they're good. If they're good. Anyway, we got from Pick Perfect. Gives it 5 stars. Good podcast. Let's see. Since you asked for a review on RAWtalk 10, here you go. I'm subscribed to you guys on YouTube, and it's nice getting some additional unfiltered thoughts. Also appreciate hearing Steven's perspective on the industry. No one cares.
You're welcome.
And current events. The show is the right amount of time and good for listening during a commute and or lunch break. Keep it what it is and don't try to do too much with it. All right, next one. Combat Camera Master Chief.
Nice.
5 stars. Knowledgeable and hysterical. Frono's Photo is my daily go-to YouTube. I laugh my butt off, yet Jared gets it right about 99% of the time.
Hey, love that comment.
Get it right 100% of the time. I'm a government employee, so I spend a lot of my time on the internet. Oh, is that where my tax dollars are going? And I've learned and laughed so much from him. That's right. Get back to work. Stop wasting our tax dollars. Next, we got ARC07-17-07-1776.
Awesome username.
5 stars. Loving the podcast. Really enjoying the podcast. Keep it up. Awesome comment. Thanks. That's awesome. Really enjoyed it. Enjoyed your comment. But then there were, Steven picked out the last 10 negative comments over the past few years because people were commenting about my daily fro. And let's read that. Let's read some of these.
Oh, man.
Yeah, Steven doesn't want me to read them because he thinks it breeds more negative comments,
Well,
which I don't think it
they're
is.
also not about this podcast at all.
Well, so it's about the prior
about
life,
you.
Steven. It's all about
you.
me. This is from PM Perry. 1 star. This guy is a clown. He takes pictures, then posts the samples like they're great, and his models' heads aren't even totally in focus. Even more, he obviously doesn't realize he had fans on both sides of the political spectrum. It it's in your best interest to find other podcasts to follow. This guy doesn't even really give you any advice that a basic photographer wouldn't already know.
Did I leave that comment?
Steven, are you PM Perry with 1 star?
No.
Yeah, he's probably talking about my Daily Froze because I was talking about Bernie book stuff.
He definitely was, because that was from a couple months ago.
But it's always great to say that he's obviously doesn't realize he had fans on both sides of the spectrum. Look, if you can listen, you can listen. If you can't listen, you can't listen. I don't care. Then we got Paul FMCD, 1 star, 2 thumbs down. Oh, he gave it 2 thumbs down, Steven. Sophomoric juvenile delivery, ... Just not polished and professional. Needs a haircut. Well, gee, asshole, it's a fucking podcast. How are you looking at my ears? Unless you're talking about unless you're talking about the actual Raw Talk that Steven and I used to do, which was one of the best quality podcast videos that you would have ever seen compared to what was going on in the market, and still would be better today than 99.999% of the other people's podcasts.
Well, that one was left on March 26th of 2021, so I don't think he was talking about the video podcast.
So why would you say get a haircut, asshole? You can't even see my hair, asshole. Anyway, Mick Zeroni, 2 stars. Still don't like the change. Years ago, when RAWtalk pod faded, Jared made this feed into the Daily Fro feed, and it's frustrating because it makes it much harder to find older RAWtalks. Or you could just search for RAWtalk and find them.
Well, I could see, because, for Spotify, for example, you'd have to literally scroll through like hundreds of Daily Fros to get to like the last RAWtalk.
Yeah, well, because I did a lot of Daily Fros. That was my thing.
When you were doing them every day.
I was going through that phase. I wanted to do that. That was my way of having a journal, basically.
Being Gary V.
Not even close, dude. Better. Tommy Full F, 3 stars. Stick to photography. I used to like Fro's honest, unbiased takes on gear. He never went fanboy for a sold out to any particular brand. But good Lord, the podcast has devolved into a stream of consciousness blog about the minutia of Fro's life, with only passing reference to substantive photography info. Please get back on track. Recent shows have been borderline unlistenable. Yeah, I was talking about myself, and I made that abundantly clear in the Daily Fro that it's me talking about what I want to talk about. And I'll read another one here. SC Trip, 1 star, liberal D-bag. Typical leftist, shares his left-slanted views and pretends he doesn't. He has been getting worse for years. He probably doesn't even realize he pushes his leftist agenda in almost every show. I've had enough, damn it. I am left-handed. So I do push my left-handed agenda because I'm left-handed. I don't have a fucking agenda, dick. Anyway, I will not read the rest because I don't feel like it, Steven. Are there any others that I should have read?
I mean, I don't think you should have read any of them personally, but...
All right. So we read the new ratings on Apple. We done the SanDisk. Oh, let's talk about Create NYC being postponed.
Didn't see that coming at all.
No one said that. No one said, see, I'm right 99.999 100% of the time. 100%. So let's see. Here we go. We talked about this on Photo News Fix a little bit, but let's talk about it on RAWtalk. And here's what it says when you go to photoplusexpo.com, because they probably don't own Create NYC, because when I went to Create NYC, they didn't come up. Something else came up. All right. We're pressing pause until 2023 with the postponement of Create NYC 2022. And this is what they said. When envisioning the future of the Photo Plus brand, our team sought to reimagine how we could learn, connect, be inspired, and evolve the event format and content to meet the needs of our community. First off, your community was like 55 and older, so maybe like AARP would have been a good sponsor to have, or maybe like Cialis.
18-year-old TikTokers.
Yeah, Cialis or Viagra, because that's really the market that you had. After much collaboration and discussion with our creators, I don't know who their creators were, in May of 2022, our team announced Create NYC, a new platform to serve our growing creator community. Could they hit any more bullshit words, Steven?
They just announced it in May?
Yeah, I think they did.
Wow.
Well, that's a lot of bullshit, lots of stupid words.
Oh, yeah.
As any visual storyteller knows, a great image requires just the right amount of exposure time. That's so stupid. Since releasing the shutter on our plans in May, who wrote this?
A photographer?
8-year-old? a photographer. The Create NYC team has found that the first show needs a little extra time to produce. See, they fucked up because it should have said needed a little extra time to develop.
Exactly.
You missed it. You people. Anyway, and it has found that it needs a little extra time to produce. The collective and inspiring experience imagined for this dynamic space. As a result, the Create NYC team has decided to pause our plans for this year in order to build a truly dynamic experience in 2023. Over the coming year of planning, we look forward to building upon our collaborative efforts with creators from all walks of our industry to ensure that when we launch in 2023, which you won't, Create NYC fosters collective experience, inspires meaningful conversation and change, and serves as the bridge between cutting-edge artistic work and cultural relevance. We appreciate your support and understanding as we regroup and plot our next step towards bankruptcy. Towards fully realizing Create NYC in 2023. Basically, what happened is every single
vendor
absolutely pulled out and was like, this is not going to happen. This is a waste of money.
It's not photocentric anymore at all, even though you're using buzzwords like shutter and develop and exposure.
Expose yourself. Test
it was always a photography-based expo. Why would you go and then get video-based creators to come in? And when I say video-based, I mean someone grabbing a phone that's a 12-year-old trying to dance on TikTok.
Hey, my money don't jiggle, it folds.
I think they could have gotten some of the TikTokers for sure. I mean, that's what's hot right now. I get it, but not every single speaker that's coming in is going to be a TikToker. They should have mixed it up and still had the standard photographers and videographers and cinematographers, all of that.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the writing on the wall that this wasn't going to happen.
They completely 180'd, yeah.
Well, we knew it wasn't going to happen just because no one wanted to go to Brooklyn. And why call it Create NYC? Photo Plus Expo, whether you like that name or not,
big name.
It just covers everything. When you start delineating it down to, or distilling it down to NYC, people are like, oh, it's just for New Yorkers, and I hate New Yorkers, and I don't want to go to New York because it's fucking New York. So I wasn't going. No one's going. It will never happen.
I'm curious what they're going to do next year.
Nothing. They're not going to be around next year.
Are they going to bring back Photo Plus? Are they going to kind of do a mixture of both? Are they just not even going to be around at all?
I'm looking at other brands they own. They own the Portrait Masters. They own Portrait System, powered by Sue Bryce. Oh, okay. So they bought that.
WPPI.
Then they've got WPPI, Wedding School, and Create NYC, and Rangefinder Magazine, which no one actually cares about anymore either. That's all. What do you have anything else to say about Create NYC other than bye-bye? Oh, I said on the podcast, I don't like to see people fail, but it's just like sometimes things are just meant to fail, and I talk shit on it.
The writing was on the wall. I feel like it was a given from day one. It's such a difference between Photo Plus, which again, like you said, their demographic was more 50-year-old photographers, and then you switched up completely to do Create NYC. You should have some type of transitional period where you're slowly going that way, but not completely switch it up the next year.
I think people would still enjoy going to a Photo Plus style show after not having it during the pandemic. People like to go to these things. They just wanted to get out and about and meet people and have a place to go. I don't care about the educational aspect. Like I'm not going to sit through an educational thing. I never did before I was Frono's Photo. Did I ever enjoy sitting through those things? I hated them.
Well, and like you said, it being in Brooklyn now, why not be at the Javits Center anymore? Because the Javits Center was such an easy trip from the subway or the train. Anyone could just simply get off there, walk a few blocks, and you're at the Javits Center. Now you have to deal with Brooklyn traffic and the nightmare of going through Brooklyn.
You could still take a train out to Brooklyn, and you just have to get on the right one.
Exactly.
Which I don't want to do. Okay, moving on. NASA launch. NASA, if you guys remember in 2017 or so, I went out, or 18, it was before the pandemic, went out to New Orleans to photograph.
Nolans.
They had Nolans. They had a social where NASA was trying to get more social influencers to come out to help spread the word on what they're doing. And being that they're government, they don't pay for anything, including lunch, including water, including transportation, including hotel.
Water?
No, they don't even supply water.
What?
They don't even. It says it for this NASA launch. They're like, bring your own water. Have your own lunch with you. There may be time for lunch on this day. I'm like, do you know who I am? I demand the best food ever. Bring me a chef now.
I mean, what's their marketing budget? Like $5?
They have none. They're not allowed to because they're part of the government. So the government has these bullshit rules, as they always do. But it's kind of stupid. If you're going to invite people in and use us to promote NASA, which is a government organization, I mean, at least, I'm not saying wine or dine. I don't need beer. I don't need alcohol. I don't need any of that shit. You know, maybe bring in some fucking food or like, I have no problem with that. At the very least, figure out a way to supply some sort of, you know, even, I don't care. I'll pay
basic
for food.
Catering, just something.
I'll pay for food for everybody at the event. Like, I don't care. I just want to eat good food, or not even good food. I just need sustenance. I heard they have a Subway on location and some barbecue type place, which if I can just get chicken, I'll be happy, but not barbecue chicken. I don't like barbecue chicken. I don't like barbecue sauce.
Ever.
I don't like barbecue sauce. I don't like the taste.
What?
I don't like this liquid smoke flavor, and I don't like, I like my chicken.
You just like plain chicken.
Yeah,
just
I want plain chicken. Look, I want ketchup,
no
bro.
spice, no
I
nothing.
want ketchup. I don't want
ketchup
spicy
on your
shit.
chicken?
I put ketchup on all my shit, dude.
It sounds terrible.
I mean, I used to. I put ketchup on steak sandwiches. I don't put ketchup on steaks anymore, but steak sandwiches is a different story. My chicken, and that's about it. I don't eat as much ketchup as I used to when I was younger. But so anyway, what they did is they put out the word for social influencers to get an opportunity for a once-in-a-lifetime experience to see the Artemis rocket hopefully take off. You have to say hopefully because anything can happen.
Yeah.
And I submitted, and I was picked as one of the people I figured I would be because I was there last time. Plus, do you know who I am, Steven?
do you know anyone else that's going?
No.
In the community or industry?
I don't. They're really not very good at the communication side of it. Like if I was them, I would have asked if it was okay to share a list of contact emails so that you could figure out if you want a room with someone, because it's not easy to get rooms out there for this. They're all sold out locally. I'm going to actually crash on the floor. Reminds me, I got to make a note. So one of the photographers out there that I met when I did, there's John, right? John Krause is one. And then this Trevor kid, they all shoot NASA, but he's like, oh, I already have 2 people staying with me. If not, I would have been fine. I only need one night. I pay for my hotel when I come in on the 26th to 28th, but there's no rooms the 28th into the 29th, and 29th is the launch. So he's like, if I can get an extra air mattress, it won't be a problem. I'm like, what's your address? I'll have Amazon send you one. I mean, I'll make it easy. I'll go on Amazon. I'll send it. All I need to do is crash because we got to get up at 2:30 a.m.
Really?
The day of the flight. Yeah, the launch, because the launch is at 8:35. So I saw the call sheet. It says we got to be there by 4:30. And I just, I'll probably get there at 3 in the morning just to be early, because traffic is going to be very tough to get there because there's going to be a lot of people trying to get out there. So I want to get out there and I want to get set up. And I just bought some gear at Alan's camera. I just put up a reel on Instagram showing the tripod I got and the gimbal head that I got for the 600 F4.
What'd you end up getting?
I got a Suray tripod.
Okay.
Which is a
China
China
You have
company.
their monopod, don't you?
I do have their monopod, which is steel. This is actually a carbon fiber Suray tripod. Nice. It's 4, I think they call it 4X because it has 4 extensions. It's really sturdy. It's like
how much?
I think they're right around $400.
It's not terrible.
Which isn't
carbon
bad.
Fiber
And I actually think one of the legs come off to be a monopod, which I personally hate because they're not good enough, but at least it has it.
At least you have the option.
And it's very similar to what you would get from Gitzo, except Gitzo would be a lot more like $1,000. And these are just almost as good. And the gimbal head is from Ben Rowe. It's a compact gimbal head.
We've always loved Ben Rowe stuff.
We always did like Ben Rowe stuff. And
for the price.
I paid for all this stuff. Do you know how I paid for it all?
In Alan's camera cash.
I had store credit from when I sold all the Nikon gear. Remember?
What was the title of that video? Giving goodbye Nikon, selling $13,000 worth of Nikon gear or something.
It was something like that. But I got all store credit, and I've just been sitting on it because I don't really. It's hard to buy stuff when every company sends you stuff to use.
Goodbye Nikon, trading in $13,000 in lenses. That's it. You traded it in for store credit.
Hey, speaking of trading in, I think it's time to get rid of the 105 macro and the 105 1.4 for Nikon. I don't think there's a reason for me to sit on it. I haven't used it.
Yeah, I mean, we really have no use for them. They're not Z mount.
And they're not good when you adapt them. That's the problem.
I can't tell you the last time we used some of those Z cameras, right?
Though
we're pretty much using Canon almost exclusively now.
I did adapt when we were testing the Z9. I remember adapting the 105-1.4 to the camera, and it didn't seem like the autofocus was as
it was really low light too, and I feel like it kept racking or something. You didn't feel like it was like hitting.
Well, the box was going to the wrong place.
That's it. Yeah.
But again, that was a pre-production camera. Firmware has changed since then, so maybe I should do that. But I'm not even going to shoot with Nikon. Though, I don't know, I was thinking about the beginner guide. Not the beginner guide. The next guide we do with shoots, I'm like, am I going to use Nikon because you can see all my settings? Like
it's a great learning tool.
Right.
It really is, seeing every single exposure change, every single, cause and effect that you're doing. You're changing shutter speed. How is it affecting your ISO and the overall exposure and blah, blah, blah.
And maybe we end up doing a section on IAF, just showing it, because if you're going to be having a mirrorless camera, just about every mirrorless camera that comes out now is going to have IAF. So I may just show people the old style of shooting and just give them that for a couple minutes. Be like, look, this is the way you can move focusing points, but here's how we really do it today. And that's what I want to teach, because it's really about the composition. Really, it's composition, it's seeing the moment, and it's understanding that now we can get those images. See, we're talking through how this guide will work.
And you could always stick with Canon too and just use a Ninja 5 on top, but I don't think it really matters if you're seen holding a Ninja 5 and not using the viewfinder, because I'm basically going to live inside that Ninja 5 most of the time. When
it's just more awkward to shoot that way. But I want to shoot I want to shoot like a photographer, not like someone who doesn't look through the EVF. Someone who just uses an LCD screen, even if they have an R3.
Who does that?
I'm gonna bring that up in a minute when we get to that. So it's not gonna matter what I use. I mean, I think using a Nikon will be perfectly fine, because I'll be explaining and educating the whole time that it's not about the gear here. We're just showing you how the shit works. But anyway, back to NASA. I was picked, and I'm going to go down there for the launch, which is Monday the 29th at 8:35 a.m., I believe. Hopefully it goes off without a hitch. Hopefully it does go on at that time, because that would be great. And so I'm figuring out what gear to take. And with figuring out what gear to take, it's even harder to figure out, because I have a 600 f4 RF right now. The problem
you don't
is,
know exactly where you're going to be either. Obviously, you're not going to be right next to the rocket, but
I think you're like 3 miles out.
How far out? Yeah, okay.
It's about 3 miles out. And some people have sent me examples of what they shoot with. I'm going to have a call with John Krause. He's this kid, 20-something-year-old, who shoots every space launch from SpaceX or NASA and all of them. And I really want to see images, and I want to see the millimeter lens that they used, and I don't want to see the crop. I want to see what it should be.
What about like drop-in filters? Are you thinking about like a polarizer or something like that with the sky and the actual rocket fuel and make it pop?
I'm just going to react. I don't know if I'm probably going to use...
I'm just saying, you might be shooting through a lot of haze that far away.
I don't think there will be.
No?
No. Everybody else has
Florida,
done it before.
Humidity.
I know, but everybody else has done it before.
Well, I'm just questioning, do they have special filters to cut through that?
I don't. I'll ask. I will ask that question.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I've seen, a 600 looks okay, but then John is telling me that you may want to shoot vertical, not horizontal, because you want to track it, and vertical, it's a rocket, so you want to take up the full frame. So now I want to know, do I need to bring an 800? Should I bring a 1200? Like, what is the right lens to have? The problem is I've got the 600, and that's fine, but I'm not sure. I'm probably not going to crop, but no, I'm not going to crop. But
I was going to say, you definitely will not crop.
It could
even
be
if it would look better if you cropped, you still would not.
We'll see what it looks like. It's not like it's going to be unique unless... I mean, it's going to be unique because it's the first time this rocket's flying. Hopefully it doesn't blow up. If it does blow up, you got to keep shooting, because you got to get those explosion shots and everything. But it's going to be a challenge, because flying with a 600 f4 means that I can't really take that separate. I got to put it in like an airport security think tank bag version 3. I can put that in there.
I've got a ton of gear that you're bringing.
I do now, with tripods and monopods and 360 cameras.
Are you bringing both R3s?
I'll take an R3. I'll probably take an R5. Maybe I'll set one up on a second. Maybe I take a second tripod to do 8K video or something in the R5.
Yeah.
Right. Just of the launch part. And then
that would be cool.
Keep shooting photos the other way. You know, this one kid, Trevor, he showed me his camera. He has like a rig where it has 3 cameras on it, 2 big pieces of glass, another camera with another lens on it. He's shooting photos and video at the same time as he's tilting back. Now, my issue with talking with these guys is they're in their 20s. So I'm not saying that they don't know what they're talking about, because they do, because they shoot this stuff all the time.
This is their specialty, yeah.
But this is what they specialize in, except for the fact that a lot of the time, like he's talking about using a ball head. Now, I wouldn't personally use a ball head. I would use this gimbal, because a gimbal is going to be much smoother than trying to control a ball head when you're shooting photos. So, they may not have the access to the gear that I have access to.
Exactly, yeah.
On the flip side, they may be setting up 10 remotes each. John and Trevor. Yeah, they get like 3 days early. They got to go set up remotes. Now, they probably are allowed to go back and change batteries, because I guess they need to test. I really don't know how it works, but they set up multiple remotes. Like they may set one to take super tight shot of the fire of the engine as it goes by, and then they just trigger everything with one button. So as they're shooting, all the other stuff is shooting and triggering, and they're shooting all these cameras at once, remote, which are up close and get dirty and get shit thrown at them. So they've got the filters, and the cameras are wrapped in like think tank protection,
like a clear cage or something like that. Like a plastic box or.
No, they're not in the plastic box, but they're in the like they got like a think tank bag, or some of them just put bags over them, really. But it should be an interesting experience. I've never seen a rocket launch. I've wanted to, and to see a 322 or 21 foot rocket taking off.
Is that the largest rocket ever launched?
I think it's going to be the largest rocket ever launched. What was the Falcon
Heavy? Pretty
Heavy?
Awesome.
Falcon Heavy.
Not many people can say they watched a rocket launch. I even try and catch it. Just they'll say you might be able to see the trail in the sky, and that amazes me.
Okay, so the Saturn V is just a little shorter than the SLS. Now, remember, the Saturn V was developed in the late 50s and launched then. And that thing is fucking massive.
Dude, the Saturn V is so big. Don't you still have a mock-up of it behind you?
I do,
somewhere?
Actually. There it is. There it is. It's right behind me. I got it from the drug dealer.
It is a pretty cool little mock-up, though.
Let me explain that. The drug dealer guy owned a knick-knack store. Let me explain that. He had a knick-knack store with junk. Not even junk. Some of it was pretty cool. Like
with drugs.
With stuff. But he always sold drugs out of there. He doesn't sell drugs out of there anymore.
Right?
It was yes. And he got arrested, and he went to Jaile.
What?
Yeah, Jelly. He didn't pass. He didn't collect $200, and he didn't pass go. He unfortunately that happened to him. But I bought my Liberty Bell from him. I bought our payphone from him. I bought the Photo News Fix phone, rotary phone from him. So I got this from him. So I got quite a bit. But anyway, the Saturn V, it's not as tall as the Saturn V. I was wrong. I looked at the wrong thing. I just saw the colors. So this is SLS Block 1, which is flying. And
what's the other one I'm seeing here? It's Starship or something?
Starship is Elon Musk's Starship. So Starship
that thing looks the biggest, right?
It is. They're testing that still right now in Texas. It keeps crashing. It's weird. It's insane. Go watch some of those videos on YouTube. It's pretty cool. That's the thing that they're launching to try and go to Mars, basically. So my goal out there is probably more to document what's going on, maybe do some video of everybody's setups. And yes, I want to get some photos myself. Now, it's not that big of a deal to get my photos, because other people will get really cool photos, and NASA will have cool photos, and John will have some awesome photos. So I'm not really worried about the photos. I mean, yeah, I want to capture it myself just for fun and put it out on the socials and stuff. But really, I want to capture the story of it. But it's going to be tough, because if I take 2 tripods, I'm going to need to I'll probably have to check the tripods. I'm going to have to take all this stuff with me. So I may check a bag so that I can have a backpack to take the 600 with, because I really don't, 1, I'm not going to leave it in the hotel. 2, I'm not going to be an asshole and leave it in the car. I'm going to tote all of this shit around with me. So I may just use the airport security 3.0 as a way to get everything on the plane. Because this is like the thing. Could you imagine, like, I want to take the lens on the plane, but I already have a roller bag, and they're like, well, that's 2 bags, and that's not going to fit under your seat. I'm like, but it's a $14,000 lens. What do you guys want me to do?
I've got a couple of remote triggers too, if you want to bring some.
I'm not going to set up the remote.
You just don't even want to, or
I have remote.
You obviously have the cameras and all the gear.
I have another remote I have another remote setup I bought. It's old Pocket Wizards that.
Do you still have the Pocket Wizards?
Yeah. I still have the Pocket Wizards.
Where are they at?
I don't know where they're at. Maybe in my bag.
But I don't think they're at the factory.
I bought the cable and everything that allows me to put it in my hot shoe so that when I take pictures, it triggers the other camera off. But I don't want to do too much, because if you try to do too much, you're going to screw it all up.
Well, you just got to plan and prepare for it. But yeah, there's a possibility of failing the more you try and do.
I think the best option will be set up one camera with a 100 to 500 with the R5 set to 8K, right? You'll help me get all this set up. Have the other camera with me. I want to use an R3 to shoot, because it's going to shoot 30 frames a second. I want to use the R3.
I wouldn't even be opposed to, say, bringing the Z9 and doing 8K 60, just because it does 60 frames a second in 8K, and it probably won't overheat.
Why are you throwing a monkey wrench in this, Steven? Why would you tell me to take a fucking Nikon? Because I have it. Do we have a 100 to 500, or do they only have a 100 to 400?
With Nikon, I'm not sure.
But I'm okay with cropping video.
just not photos.
So I I guess I would lock the focus in, because I would only set it
for sure.
on.
I mean, you're going to be like 2 miles away.
Well, I would only set it for the launch part. So it would, once it clears the tower, it's going to be gone for that one. Really, you think that's going to is the Z9 footage video better than the 8K on the R5?
Well, it would still be 8K. It's just you're getting 60 frames a second versus 30. And I think for a launch like that, I mean, the higher frame rate, the better. And it's unlimited record time. Not that you're recording for 30 minutes, but...
What has a better bit rate, though?
Well, I think technically the Z9 will even do 8K RAW if you really wanted to. Either way, you're going to get great video, you know?
Now you're making me think, Steven.
Whatever option lets you bring the least amount of gear, I would go that route.
Well... What is that? Nikon doesn't have a 100 to 500. Isn't it a 100 to 400?
I believe it is.
Well, I have the 100 to 500 on Canon.
Yeah.
Nikon 100 to 500. I mean, I could always ask. So they have a 200 to 500, which would need to be adapted.
It's a shame you don't have that 800 millimeter, that 6.3 or whatever.
800 6.3
that just came out.
Why don't I ask for it? So that Nikon will be like, why don't the... But do I want that for stills or for video though?
I would say video, but I guess you could use it for stills as well.
Yeah, but I think 800 from where we're at is going to be too much, unless you shoot it vertical.
Yeah, I don't know.
I would shoot vertical video.
I would probably stick with horizontal, and then you can always crop and post if you wanted to. But
I know, but what if it can't even get the whole rocket in there? Let me make a note to ask John
what
about
the standard focal length would be.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't, it's hard to plan because I don't know where you're going to be, how far you're going to be and how much it's going to fill the frame. It's very hard to, I feel like you're probably going to need at least a 600.
Well, yes, I may need.
And it's like, how wide do you want the frame? Do you want to be completely tight, top and bottom
with
the rocket?
For photos.
Or do you want the entire,
photos, I'd like to go vertical. But I would
that makes sense with photos. Yeah,
I would like to get the whole fire and the whole launch, the smoke, and then it taking off, and as it leaves the frame. Shit, I'd have to lock in the exposure too. I'm gonna have to ask these guys for a lot of help because John does this all the time. I need to ask him about, is the 800 too long horizontally? I also did ask the NASA people where we will be, and the reason I asked them is because I can then share that. Not share. I could let the guys know. They're not looking to see where to go. They already have their passes. But I just they'll know where it is, so they can advise me on what glass to bring.
Yeah, they've done it before.
So why'd you have to throw a monkey wrench in there, Steven?
I'm just throwing stuff out there.
Well, the problem is they don't have a lens. 100. I would have to get a 5. Oh,
again,
you were
just
talking
don't
about
know.
800. Sorry, you were talking about 800.
Correct. I was talking about 800, and I just don't know if you need a 400 or do you need an 800. Like I don't know how far away you're going to be. 400's
not enough. 400's not enough. Oh, I typed
in full width video, so
I typed in Nikon RF. I meant to type in.
You're locking in autofocus, exposure, pretty much everything, so you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. At least with video, you're so far away, it's not gonna change.
Far away,
you don't have to refocus.
Doesn't anybody stay in one? I would need to get borrow the fuck. But if I take the Nikon, how do I get that in the bag too, Steven?
Well, that's what I was saying. What's the easiest route in terms of bringing the least amount of gear? I think either way, you're bringing an extra lens and body if you're bringing an R5, right?
The Nikon 100 to 500 is less, right? It's smaller.
Yeah.
It's smaller because it's smaller than an 800 6.3. I would figure it out.
You've also got the 800 f11 for...
I'm not taking that. I'm not taking the 800 f11.
Remember, I'm talking about video.
I'm not taking the 800 f11. that's going to look like shit with the fire. It's just going to not look good.
Yeah, it's video. It's not like you're getting the most detail out of video.
Maybe I just won't even do this at all. Maybe I won't even go, Steven. How about them apples?
Who was it you went with last time? Was it Elia Licardi and Mike Kelly?
Mike Kelly. Yeah, we went there. It was
Those
cool.
guys aren't going this time?
No, we didn't even know that we were each signing up for it. But anyway, speaking of traveling, Petapixel, well, all right, now that I mentioned Petapixel, speaking of Petapixel, they still have not posted our Bernie thing. They're not going to post our Bernie thing.
Pretty sure that's not happening now.
I didn't hear back from Michael Zhang because I sent it to him to see why
He's probably
didn't you do it.
And ready to post, and he's listened to RAWtalk and he hears us talking about him.
Well,
not posting anymore.
We weren't exactly wrong. We were exactly right, Steven.
Yeah. I mean, you're 100% of the time always right?
100% of the
or
time.
Or 99%, according to that one commenter.
100%. 100%. I'm looking at the site right now to see. No,
you personally emailed them. Did they ever respond at all?
No, I didn't get a response at all. But, they still constantly post things like, let's see. Posing expert calls out millennials for using outdated angles and postures. Photo captures terrifying moment. A whale breached too close to a boat. That has a lot to do with
Definitely
photography.
Photo news.
That's great. I don't want to go down that hole again.
Yeah,
but anyway, they posted an article titled "Photographer Whose Camera Caused Bomb Scare Sues American Airlines." This took place back in October of 2021. And the incident resulted in the hastily evacuation of passengers and the photographers determined by the FBI agents. So basically, I'm going to read this here. According to Rolling Stone, the lawsuit alleges that a female passenger with an infant seated next to the plaintiff treated her seatmate with suspicion for an extended portion of the flight, repeatedly leaving her assigned seat and attempting to move elsewhere on the aircraft, including while seatbelt light was illuminated. Can I bring up a story? I'm going to bring up a story.
Always
I was flying after 9/11, okay? I'm just going to say this. I was flying after 9/11. I'm sitting next to a guy from the Middle East on the airplane, right? And I'm like, well, why don't I? Because we got bags of food. Like they gave us food for the flight in paper bags. I don't know why at the time, but I wanted to say, hey, would you like any of my extra stuff? And I will not lie and tell you that I wasn't thinking that if he was going to take over the plane, that he would at least be like the Jew next to me offered me an apple.
Oh, man.
That's what went through my head, Steven. I mean,
how soon after 9/11 was this?
It was probably a couple months after. Yeah. I mean, you and I flew 9/11 2000 and I mean, I know I didn't know you.
We
then.
flew during the 10-year end? No, it was.
We flew to Germany or something.
It was like 2013 or 14, yeah.
But I know
and
that
it was on 9/11.
I know I flew 2002 9/11.
On the anniversary, I should say, of 9/11. Obviously not on 9/11.
Not on a 9/11. But no, I thought that was an interesting story that I sat next to the Middle Eastern guy and then offered him my apple that in case anything happened, he would be like, oh, the Jew guy was very nice to me. I'm going to let him be as the plane crashes down.
Oh,
but
Jesus.
I mean, yes, everybody thinks it, but nobody says it, Stephen.
That is true. That is true.
I say it.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the story. At some point, the woman brought her concerns about the photographer to flight attendants, whom the lawsuit states made no attempt to speak to the plaintiff, nor relocate either passenger to a new seat. The suit seeks $75,000 in restitution on behalf of the unidentified plaintiff. Wasn't me. Rolling Stone reports that the lawsuit states no member of the AA staff, not Alcoholics Anonymous, but American Airlines, attempted to question the photographer about his camera equipment during the flight as the plaintiff was sleeping or dozing for most of the flight. Look, if you're going to try and take a plane over, you're probably not sleeping during the flight.
Yeah, I would think that they're not taking a nap.
The court documents, they didn't say anything. Upon the aircraft's descent into LaGuardia, the plaintiff retrieved his camera from his bag to take a photograph of New York City skyline, at which point the filing claims the woman, who had yet again moved to another seat, began yelling, "Don't do it!" And we're dead! We're dead! At the man.
What?
Yes, I'll read that again. She started yelling, "Don't do it!" And we're dead! at the man. The disturbance forced the plane to make an abrupt landing to immediately evacuate all passengers off the aircraft, upon which point the plaintiff was detained by emergency responders on the tarmac. Footage of the photographer being detained on the tarmac upon arrival at LaGuardia was shared to Twitter by fellow passenger of the flight. I'm going to take a look at this and see if I recognize, oh my God, it's me. Why does he have an afro? No, so it's terrible. It's a guy laying there and people are backing away like scared as shit because you wouldn't know what's going on. And they always do say, see something, say something, right? So if you see something, you're supposed to say something.
Yeah.
But come on. You've made it through.
This was almost a year ago, and this is now just coming up?
It says 2019. It's a lawsuit. Oh, what did I say, 2020?
2021, I thought you said. October.
Yeah, 2021. Yep, October 9th. It's stuff like this. So you're like, first off, the guy went through security, right? If security failed that hard that he's sleeping. If the guy is sleeping, he's probably not trying. Did you offer him an apple at least? See, that was where we went wrong. The photographer who fell asleep did not offer an apple to the woman who goes, we're dead, while we land. So, according to Rolling Stone, the filing says that the American airline employees on the flight would later tell the Federal Aviation Administration and other government officials that they believe the amateur photographer to be a threat because, according to the female passenger, he had something dangerous, was timing the flight with a timing device, was texting pictures of bombs, and was looking at pictures of bombs. Hold on. And looking at pictures of bombs and how to put bombs together, among other behaviors. However, court documents stated that the plaintiff only used his phone to set and subsequently turned off an alarm intended to wake him before the flight landed, which you see me do every time. I always set my watch.
Mistaken for like a bomb ticking or something? Like a countdown?
No, she was basically saying that he was timing the flight because he wanted to do harm.
Oh my God.
So I always set a timer on my watch.
Yeah, me too.
The reason I set it is I want to see if I can get the exact time. I want to see if my timer will hit 0 as soon as we land. It's a fun little game I play. I try to guess the landing time, and I've gotten within 3 seconds once.
3 seconds?
Yeah, within 3 seconds of like a 6-hour flight.
Do you count actual touchdown?
As soon as the wheels hit the ground. Okay. As soon as the wheels hit the ground, Steven.
Wait for the front wheel or just the back wheels?
The back wheel. As soon as
so it's not fully landed just yet.
No, it's soon as we touch the ground is when...
It should be like when all wheels touch the ground.
Steven, stop complicating this. It's as soon as the wheels touch the ground, my clock goes off. And then someone starts yelling...
And then a bomb goes off.
We're dead! We are dead!
Oh my gosh.
Let's see. Waking him before the landing, the female passenger eventually could not definitely say whether or not she saw suspicious photos or text on the man's phone. If she was looking at my iPad, she'd see porn. Actually, she wouldn't see porn, but the time I was watching the Andy Warhol documentary, if anybody knows this, it came up on the part on his anal photos, men doing other men and photographs of genitals.
And I'm sitting here. Netflix, right? So they're showing everything.
I'm sitting here on Netflix watching on an airplane. I'm like, oh, there's a dick.
Daddy, what's that guy watching?
Oh, look, there's another dick and another guy. Oh, that's exciting. Anybody else seeing this?
It's so awkward when I'm watching a movie and like a sex scene happens and it's on it for like a minute or two. And, meanwhile, like passengers are walking by, going to the bathroom, trying to figure out what you're watching. And it's so awkward.
I just let it, I turn but I have the biggest iPad in the world because I'm blind. So it's like.
And your brightness is probably like full brightness.
It's not. It's like 69%.
I'm just saying, like, I actually turn my brightness like almost all the way down when I'm on a plane.
Because you're so afraid.
Just for privacy reasons.
Anyway, she thought she saw suspicious photos, but claimed that she couldn't really.
But it was just the Andy Warhol doc.
She couldn't guarantee that she saw them, and he had suspicion. So ultimately, the lawsuit states federal investigators found no evidence on the plaintiff's iPhone or amongst his belongings to support the passenger's statement to the AA flight crew. And after a lengthy detention in which the filing claims the plaintiff was neither read his rights nor allowed a phone call, federal agents dropped the plaintiff off at a taxi stand in the middle of the night where all of his gear was stolen.
No,
I just made that up. Oh. No, his gear wasn't stolen. American Airlines.
So his life was basically flipped upside down for this wrongdoing that he didn't even do anything.
His mom got scared when a couple of kids were up to no good.
Yeah, Will Smith.
And sent him to the neighborhood. I got in one little fight and my mom's got scared. She said, you're moving with your aunt and uncle to bed air. Yo, home, smell you later. Let's see. They dropped him off at a taxi stand in the middle of the night. American Airlines allegedly did not issue an apology to the detained photographer for his experience. A Port Authority spokesman would later tell a reporter at the New York Times that law enforcement determined that there was no criminality on the part of the passenger and he was released. This is not the first time American Airlines has faced the wrath of photographers. In 2018, Michelle Frankfurt took to social media to share how AA had allegedly lost her camera equipment worth it. Well, she's still an asshole for doing that. I don't bring up that story again, where this woman lost American Airlines lost her baggage with $13,000 worth of gear, which she shouldn't have checked in the first place. And hashtag she was an asshole for allowing them to do that. We talked about that a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
But the moral of the story here is that woman should be getting, she cried wolf. Now, they do tell you to if you see something, say something. But
yeah,
at least come up to the guy.
Sorry, I
guess. At least
guess.
come up to the guy and be like, "Hey, what do you do?" I'm a
give
photographer.
Give him an apple at least, right?
I would give him an apple. I mean, we all know that that's how you deal with a Middle Eastern guy sitting next to you on an airplane.
Oh my God,
Steven, it was 2001. I was like, I'm nice. I'm going to offer this guy an apple.
I don't recall how soon after 9/11 was it when flights started back up. Was it as soon as like a week? Was it a month? Was it 6 months? I don't.
It
recall.
was a couple. It was a couple
couldn't have
weeks.
been that.
Let's see. How soon after 9/11?
I couldn't imagine it being like the next week. Like, oh, everything's fine. They, obviously they figure out TSA and all that.
How?
But they also couldn't restrict people from traveling.
Let's see. Global passenger traffic recovered, but it took 2 years. No, it didn't take 2 years to do that. I don't know. I thought it was a couple weeks, and then they got them back up in the air because they had to. Maybe
I would think a month, maybe
less than a month. No,
Yeah,
it had to be a matter of a week or so because people were stranded all over the country.
Yep.
And that's when all our rights were infringed upon by the TSA. Dude, how many times have you watched? Now, knock on wood, being that I've got.
I will say the TSA could be a little nicer.
It depends on who you get.
Yeah.
If I would get. I don't want to say this. I really don't want to say this. I don't want to say it, but I've had certain people search me and feel me up. And
what kind of people?
I've asked for it. Hold on. We'll get to that in a minute. There have been times where there's an older white guy or a nerdy white guy, and they are a little more gentle on my balls than, say, the really the big African-American guy who I literally had to look down at because he's on his knees between my legs, and I'm like,
hey-oh.
I'm like, could you please be a little softer? And they get very offended, and by they I mean TSA agents.
What's this in the middle of your legs?
Well, I'm Jewish. It's certainly nothing. And I wear tight pants. And I'm wearing the tightest pants in the world. Now, let me reiterate.
Definitely not concealing anything there.
When I say they, I'm talking about all TSA agents. They don't like when you question what they're doing or make jokes while they're patting you down.
As they touch you.
But I wear the tightest shirt.
Me?
I wear the tightest shirt in the world, and I wear tight jeans. I'm not smuggling anything in there because there's not a lot of room anyway. So... But this guy, he would run his hand up the inside of my thigh, stopping at where my nuts are meeting the side of my leg. And I'd be like, dude, seriously? Come on. Like,
he's doing his job very thoroughly.
Then he gets very upset that you're saying something. And I'm like, no. I'm like, if you're going to treat me like shit, I'm going to say something to you. I don't fucking care if you're the TSA.
And they're patting you down because you usually refuse to go through the X-ray machine, right?
So I refuse to go through the spinny machine.
Yeah.
But as of... the last couple of years of flying.
And it seems like they always get so annoyed when someone says, I don't want to go through this.
They do, but I don't
hate
want...
when people opt out.
They always say, like, it's not that much radiation, and it's the amount of radiation you get from flying in an airplane anyway. I'm like, well, then I don't want to have any extra. And if I have enough time, then I'll be like, I opt out. It's my right to opt the fuck out. So anyway, I don't have to really do that anymore because I have pre-check, so I just go right through. It's really much easier. I literally get out of the car. Tariq, my friend... drives me. I love Tariq. He's from Turkey. I think Tariq is from Turkey. It's funny. So sometimes I call Tariq because I like to take early flights. And I'm like, Tariq, can I get can I get picked up at 5:15 or something? And he's like, Jared, my friend, is it okay if we go at 5:20 because I still have to do my morning prayer? I'm like, Tariq, 5:20 is perfectly fine, so you can get your morning prayer in, because he's got to pray 5 times a day. And it's just like, no problem, Tariq, not a problem at all. And I always ask him about his fasting and his Ramadan and all of those things. I didn't offer him an apple. Shut up, Steven. I know you were thinking it.
I was thinking it, but I didn't say it. Back to the TSA discussion, though. What I can't stand is every time you go through security, if you have pre-check or something like that, some airports and some TSA agents say, leave everything in the bag. Some say, take the laptop out. I feel like it's a different story every single airport you go to, and depending on which agent you get.
Yeah.
It should be universal across the board. Same thing every time. And then they get mad at you for not understanding what to do. And you're like, well, I just did this in Philly. Like, I don't understand why it's different here.
Right. Like in some places, you have to put your bag into a bin to put into the machine. In Philly, we just slide the damn bag into the damn machine and we go on our merry way.
And I've had times where I had to go through regular security because my wife doesn't have pre-check, so I just go with regular security through her. But I show that I have pre-check, and sometimes they're like, oh, you don't have to take your shoes off with everybody else because you have pre-check. And then sometimes they're like, no, you have to do everything that other people do as well. You have to still take your shoes off.
The fact that we still need to take shoes off is just because one asshole tried to light his shoe on fucking fire in an airplane and everybody's got to take the shoes off. Fuck off.
I noticed they check my hat a lot more thoroughly the past year or two as well. Like, they'll actually check the inside of the brim and everything.
You know, do they check your anus too?
They check that as well, yep.
Excuse me, sir. We're going to need to take a look at this.
A little toy car up there.
Oh, that's a Jackass reference?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what I have to say about that, Steven. The TSA, favorite T-shirt is it's not gay if it's the TSA. Is a really good T-shirt that we
like that one.
We've seen someone wear before, but it's kind of funny. But yeah, Steven's, when we used to travel before we had pre-check, would see me getting searched every single time, and I would always tell him to take video.
And you would make me record or take pictures, yes.
And I'd smile as I'm getting patted down.
Take a picture. And I'm like awkwardly recording him getting patted down.
Well, so we could use it for RAWtalk back in the day.
But it's just the same thing every time, just a guy patting you down.
And touching my balls.
And doing that as well, yes.
Fine. All right. Let's continue on here. Let me check my NOATs. So we've done the SanDiscs. No one's posted the Bernie documentary. We already talked about that. American Airlines. Let's talk about Tony Northrup. Oh, he's going to talk about Tony Northrup. Tony Northrup. Tony Northcrop. Sony Northcrop. I don't know all the names for Tony. So someone sent me this. I don't think I follow Tony on Instagram, but he posted this. And I'm going to read it. Is it? Yeah, it's got to be real, right? It's not someone making it up, are they? Can you look on his posts to see that it's real?
Was it a story or was it an actual post? Because I don't see a...
It's a post.
How does it start?
It says, Tony Northrup. I see it. Our review of the Nikon Z9 autofocus.
It's his latest post, yep, with the eagle.
It would be really bad that we didn't check and then turn out that someone made it up. But it's not even like it's salacious. It's not even bad information. No. Let's see. Here's what Tony Northrup said. Our review of the Nikon Z9 autofocus for flying birds continues to frustrate some. You definitely can get great flying bird shots with the Nikon Z9. I just got these of an osprey with a sea robin and a red-tailed hawk. It's the best Nikon for the wildlife ever made. But is the AF tracking and subject detection better than a Sony A1 or even a Canon R10? Question mark. Not in my experience. Even programming different buttons to do different modes and selectivity disabling subject detection, the Z9 loses subjects and hunts more than the Canon and Sony competition. I can produce good results with the Z9, but also produce good results with my 1999 Canon Elan 2E. Taking good pictures doesn't mean it's the best at what it does. We make unbiased reviews for people cross-shopping camera gear, and we're happy to try new settings and restart. But after more testing, our review of the Z9 stands, at least until the next firmware update. The reason I'm talking about this is it's like someone else who shoots birds. Like, I don't shoot birds, but I did. And Tony basically coming up with the same thing that I said a while back, especially about the R10. When the R10 and the R7 came out, I made the statement
in our initial preview video. Yes,
in our initial lowercase p capital review video, I made the statement that it's possible and it might feel like the R7 and the R10 track better than
don't
the
say
Z9.
it. Don't you
than the
say
Z9.
it.
And it turns out that it's not far off. The R10 I shot with soccer seems to have a little bit more trouble keeping up, but it's still sticky exactly where it needs to be when it does find the subjects. But it feels like even that might be on par with the Z9. The R7 definitely is. The R6, the R5, the R3 obviously are better. And the Sony A1, the tracking's just better.
Don't tell a Nikon user that.
No, don't tell a Nikon user the facts.
Oh, it's your opinion.
No, my opinion is that I'm right.
I own every Nikon camera and never use Canon or Sony, but Nikon is better.
Right. And I will say this, my friend who shoots a lot of professional sports and college sports, I let him use an R3 for 15 plus minutes out at a soccer game at Philadelphia Union. It was the R3 with a 400-2.8 because he's a Z9 shooter, but he's had some issues with NPS. And there's not a lot of professional support. He had issues with a lens. I ended up helping him out, and they're replacing the lens for him because the lens was bad, and it shouldn't be bad.
And now he's a Canon shooter.
Well, he's debating should he switch to Canon. So
really?
he thought that he could pick up the Canon and just know how it worked. But of course, we have it set a specific way that's a little different. What I will say is he didn't like the viewfinder because when you do look through the Nikon viewfinder, you're like, holy fuck, it's huge. Like the way that they have their optics set, it's just amazing.
See, I'm surprised because the R3 is such a giant viewfinder with the eye control, because of that.
It is a giant viewfinder, but the view of the Z9, because he had his with him, and obviously I've used it, but when you put them next to each other, you're like, wow, it's like looking through a massive TV, which is awesome. It's still not a problem.
It's interesting because on paper, the Z9 is technically the worst resolution when it comes to the EVF.
It's just the largest one. It's just the largest one.
The magnification, I'm sure, is the largest.
And I'm totally fine with that. Like, I love how big it puts it in front of my eye. He said that the R3 clearly has better autofocus and is stickier and is quicker to acquire than his Z9. And this is coming from a guy who shoots with a Z9 and a 400-2.8 with the teleconverter built in, and he acknowledges that. The crazy thing was I basically assisted him. I sat next to him while he did this because this was an actual game. He was hired to do this, so he still had his Nikon set up. So he had to go run and get a card out of his Z9 for something. So I have the camera, and then play starts coming my way. He's like, shoot it. So I start shooting. I find the player who kicks it, and the guy fucking scores. So I'm shooting in JPEG because that's where he wanted
the shot.
No, I got it. I'm shooting in JPEG, and he wanted to be in JPEG, not RAW, because if he needed to transfer,
shot JPEG.
Well, it was his. He had it set, but I got the shot for him.
Did you crop it too?
Basically, what I'm saying is, I'm a great assistant for multiple reasons.
Best of the best.
No, seriously, I make a great assistant because I know
you're an experienced photographer. I would hope that you would.
So I was sitting next to him. He's like, "Okay, shoot." So I did shoot while he ran into the other thing. And then I put the SD card into the camera and I figured out how to transfer just the starred card, the rate, anyone with a rating, copy those from card 1 to card 2 and hand the card to the runner so they could post them on social media. So I did that. And then I gave him the camera back and he was shooting, and things like I was giving him play-by-play when it was in close because it kind of seemed like he would want to know where the guy with the ball is who's going to kick it. I'm like, okay, the ball's at the 18, the ball's at the 6. And he was like, this is very helpful. And I was like, that's awesome. So the moral of the story is he's probably not going to switch at the moment, but I may go out with him next week, or is that this week? I think that's this week, to let him test it out.
Well, and back to the R7, R10 discussion versus the Z9, I think what we're trying to get at too is not so much that they're better than the Z9, but the fact that Canon's lowest end cameras can compete with a flagship from the other brand.
That is correct, Steven. Now get ready for the wrath of Nikon lovers.
I know.
Whatever.
I apologize in advance for all of you Nikon fanboys.
Whatever. We don't care about your bitching and moaning. You're like the lady on the airplane screaming, "We're all dead." Don't do it. We're all dead. Sounds like Nikon shooters to me.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, that's all they do is they cry foul, as if we did something wrong just by, like, my favorite part though about all of the Nikon stuff for the past 4 years is how I've said it all along and I haven't changed my tune about it, and then I'm fully vindicated when Nikon admits the issue and then proves that their camera can be better. and I'm vindicated and stuck to my guns for the last 4 years and have been proven correct.
And the best is when the Z6 II and Z7 II came out, and we essentially said it had the same AF as before and nothing really changed, and they're still way behind than the R5, R6 and the A7 IV, and every Nikon fanboy fought us on that. And then the Z9 came out, and they're like, look, it can now compete, and it's now actually focuses just as good as the others. And it's like, that's what we were trying to say before, and you used to say the Z6 II and Z7 II were on par and focused just as well. Clearly they didn't. Yeah. And now you're admitting it because you have something that actually does or is close enough.
All right. Next, in a story that Steven would prefer I don't talk about, F-Stoppers posted a video, because that's what F-Stoppers does. They don't post our videos anymore, but they posted a video by someone by the name of Alex Barrera, and he's doing a review of the first impressions of the R3, and something honestly set me off. I sent Steven a video and I didn't send it to anybody else because I kind of didn't want it to get out, because I kind of yelled a little bit at it. Steven, don't release that. Don't blackmail me now. Actually, I stand by it. If you want to release it, you can do it. But let me run this clip of audio so you can hear exactly what this guy said, and I want to talk about this.
I think with all new mirrorless bodies, specifically with Canon, for me, the way I shoot, the fastest way to move the focusing point or get something in focus is just by touching the screen. I will say I don't use the viewfinder, which, don't kill me in the comments, it's just the way I shoot. I love holding my camera like this, and I love using the big screen. I never use the viewfinder. So for me, if I want to focus somewhere else, it's just faster and easier to just tap on it. So the smart controller is cool, it's fast, but not for me, just because I accidentally kept moving it. This camera also does have an incredible viewfinder. I just told you I don't use the viewfinder. I've used it a few times. It looks great. It's just not my style. I can't get used to this. I just shoot like this. Again, it's all preference, but I won't get too into detail as far as how great this viewfinder is because I just really haven't used it.
That is one of the dumbest statements I've ever heard, Steven. The fact that the fastest way, he says, to do the focusing is to touch it. That is just, you're using a $6,000 camera, and I'm going to plant a flag on this hill, and I will continue to plant a flag on the hill, that if you're a real photographer, you're going to look through the electronic viewfinder 99.9% of the time. And yes, there's those occasions where you hold it above your head or you hold it lower.
Weird angles, yeah.
But the fact that he sits here and says that he uses the touch screen to touch the focus point, and that's the fastest way to move the focusing point. No, you know the fastest way to move the focusing point in the R3, Steven, is to let the autofocus lock and track the subject. It's going to be the fastest way to do it. And that fucking multi-controller, the fast controller,
smart controller,
I still can't get it right. The smart controller is really fucking fast, and you don't even need it.
It's crazy fast. It's basically the joystick on steroids.
So I'm not ripping on this photographer.
If anything, eye control is probably the fastest. Not IAF, but eye control, if you had to actually break it down to the fastest way to say that focus.
Don't yell at me in the comments. I like to shoot like this with holding the camera out in front of you. Like, I get it. To each their own.
Sure.
But if you want it, but you can say to each their own, but I'm still going to sit here and defend the fact that you should be looking through the viewfinder, because as soon as you hold it out in front of you and you have to touch the screen to focus, guess what? If you have a big lens on there, you're losing balance. You're not getting your line straight. You're not nice and stable. You look like a moron when you're shooting because you don't look professional. You don't look like a professional photographer. Now, I don't know this person. I'm just calling out this style of shooting, and he just so happened to be the one who made a video that says that. So I'm just pointing out the fact that if you own an R3, you should not be listening to this person and holding it out in front of you and shooting that way.
If you had to guess his age, what would you say?
26.
Because I do think that plays a big role in photographers coming up that are younger. They're used to the smartphone era, growing up with always just touching the screen and having the physical screen in front of them versus up to their eye. And I just think it's more comfortable for them. But I 100% back you up on that is the more professional way to get a better picture overall, and the proper way to hold a camera and shoot through it.
Lines straight, much better.
Stability, 3 points of stability. You're not having that anymore. You're having two.
And then, or even one when you take your finger off to touch the focusing point. Why would you even have to take your hand off the camera to touch the focusing point with lock-on tracking? Maybe he's just not using the camera right.
Well, I was going to say maybe he just doesn't have the full subject detection on.
Because you don't need to move the focusing points anymore. I mean, yes, occasionally manually I may move a focusing point, but the camera is always locked onto a subject and tracking them perfectly well. I don't need to touch the screen.
Back to that whole Z9 versus R3 debate, I tend to watch Taylor Jackson, for example, every once in a while, and he's a big Nikon fanboy, always was, almost an ambassador. He wasn't, but he was always behind his Nikon cameras. And recently he actually switched to the R3, which I found very interesting because he was never a Canon shooter, but he basically was saying that he never ever needs to move focusing points. The camera just, for the most part, knows what to focus on, like what he's trying to focus on.
Yeah.
And he's not using eye control. It just happened to be the right subject, the right eye detection. He shoots weddings primarily, so it's people for the most part. But yeah, it's just, you really keep it on almost the all-encompassing, autofocus setting, and it knows where to lock on. It's weird.
Exactly. So the only reason I called this out is because I think that is terrible information to give to a prospective photographers, especially using a professional camera to say, it's just how I like to shoot. I get that's just how you like to shoot, but I'm going to tell you that it's wrong, right? I'm going to say it's wrong. It's not the way you shoot. I'm just saying it.
So I'm a little confused. Why was this video called Canon EOS R3 First Impressions posted on f-stoppers when that camera's been out for nearly a year at this point?
I don't know. When did that video come out is another question.
August 14th, 2022. So this week.
It just came out. I don't know. I don't know.
First impressions, you would think that video would get posted the first week the camera's out because no one has seen the camera. It's very odd that it's
we've said this about f-stoppers, that of course their article has two paragraphs, the specs of the R3, and then a final paragraph. All they do now is put up 2 paragraphs and some other bullshit and put up other people's content. That's it. That's all f-stoppers is doing. But no, you're right. This one should not have been posted.
Now, I could see if it was, the Canon R3 from a Nikon shooter's perspective or something like that. That's a different story. But very odd that it's just a random review a year later.
Exactly. So let's move on to a user question that came in. And this is just a random question. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But it says, I've got a Z6 II, Z6, and a barely touched D4S. I've got 2 24-70s, 70-200, 50, and 85 lens, then the 400-2.8. I feel like I'm getting left behind, especially if I want to try video. I know selling all my equipment is there'll still be upside down switching to Canon or Sony, but I feel like Nikon has left me with 0 options. I actually pay to be an NPS member, had a big weekend with concerts and sports that I wanted to try a Z9, and I got radio silence from them. I just think Nikon has lost their way and abandoned their core. Hearing this podcast kind of confirms that. So they were talking about last podcast. So after that long ass text, this was a text line I forgot to give the text line number. That's 313-710-9729. It's always in the description down below, as long as Steven gets that right. So after this long
I actually don't think it normally is.
All right, well, you should add that there. What is the process of doing a wholesale switch? How would you go about it? I will need a 400 for sure. Maybe a 300 will work, but 400 for sure. It's just random that question came in today.
I find it funny that he's talking about, especially, he's being left behind, especially if he wants to try video. You could still get great video out of the Z6 II, the Z6. Obviously, we proved that with the Bernie documentary. It is a little bit of a struggle, in terms of autofocus, but it's still great quality.
I mean, I wouldn't stake my claim on Nikon at this point if I had all this stuff. I mean, you got a 400-2.8. The way you're going to lose money on that because you're only going to get like $5-6 grand.
Is this all F-mount lenses or
it looks like all F-mount lenses right now.
He's just adapting them onto his Z6.
The way that you go about this is you go to someone like Alan's Camera. You literally go in there and you say, I want to trade in this kit, and you tell them what you want to trade it in for. They actually have R3s at Alan's Camera right now. I was there today. So if you want an R3, they have them. They don't have Z9s. But, or at least at the time of recording this, they have R3s. You go in there and you make the switch. You just go, how much is all this worth? Now, you're not going to get as much money back as you would if you sold it independently, but it is much harder to sell your gear independently. It's a pain. So
buy my 5D Mark IV.
Still for sale. When you just sell it to your barber. When you go into Allen's and you trade in gear, you only pay tax on the difference of what's left. So if you trade in everything and it's $2,000 difference or $5,000 difference, you're only paying tax on that $5,000, not on the $25,000 total for what the Switch would have been. That's my recommendation for you, is you would decide to go Canon or Sony. In this case, I mean, you could find
he could probably get a lot more
A9 II
with Sony and the third-party
Sigma glass if you
Sigma,
wanted,
yep.
right? So Sony wouldn't be a bad option if you wanted an A1 or an A9. I mean, I wouldn't buy an A9 II right now because an A9 III has to be around the corner at this point.
Yeah. Yep.
But an R3 is gorgeous. Even the R6 is gorgeous too. If you didn't want to spend all that money on an R3, being that you have Z6 IIs and Z6s, and you had that D4S, but a Z6.
I would also say rent it. Rent something first before you just dump all of your Nikon gear out of nowhere. You never know. You might end up hating the Canon system. Who knows?
Yeah, you won't. You'll end up loving it and hate it.
That's what you did. You were a Nikon shooter and you completely went from Sony to Canon. So
I did.
You've tried them all.
I've tried it all. I'm a trisexual.
Ergonomic-wise, what's your favorite?
Ergonomic-wise, it's the R3.
Okay.
It is more of a brick in your hand, but it feels like
light though.
It feels like a comfortable. It's lighter than an R5 with 2 batteries and a grip.
The Z9 though, I feel like I can run over with my car and it's fine.
The Z9 is just so heavy.
It is heavy.
And it feels good, but it's just too heavy. The R3 is the lightest thing since sliced bread. It's like a feather.
The A1 feels like it's a piece of plastic, piece of junk.
The A1 is another miniaturized thing that Sony likes to do.
Yeah.
Good news, Dan just uploaded Photo News Fix for me to check out as we finish up this show, and that's the episode that was this week's episode that's coming out. Anything you want to wrap up with, Steven?
No, I think that's it. I got nothing on my end.
We appreciate you guys listening. If you could go give us a nice rating on iTunes, that would be great. I don't think you can do ratings on Spotify. Maybe thumbs up.
You can 1 to 5 star it, but you cannot actually write a written review.
Okay, I don't know how many people actually listen on Spotify, but if you do, go ahead, give us some stars, give us some stars on iTunes, and Steven will pick them and read them next week. Don't be assholes. That's what I have to say. Don't be mean just to be mean. I will not read it if you're mean. I'll probably read it if you're mean. It depends.
On Spotify, there's 74 ratings, and we are a 4.7 out of 5 stars. Not bad.
That's awesome. Todd probably gave us a 0.
Brought us down from 5.0 to 4.7.
He's like, oh, these guys didn't have me back on RAWtalk. No, we didn't, Todd. No. Hey, I have a question, Steven.
Yes.
When you're on vacation next week, are you going to do RAWtalk?
I guess I could, right?
Well, you could.
No, but then I have to edit it.
Yeah.
It's a maybe right now because, I could. All I need to bring really is the laptop and the microphone. We're driving. We're not flying. So I could do it and I could edit it. There's not that much editing on a podcast like that. We don't cut that much out.
Well, you let me know what you want to do, Steven, because Vanessa's probably waiting for her opportunity to come back on the show.
I'm sure she is.
She is. She likes coming on the show. People like when Vanessa comes on the show.
Yeah, she's good people.
I got nothing else to say today other than I probably offended plenty of people today. But just remember, offer your apples to your neighbor, regardless of who they are. If you have apples and you want to share one with anybody on the plane, just don't share one with that lady who thinks that the guy is looking at bombs on the airplane and how to put bombs together. So she yells, "Don't do it. We're all about to die." Like, Jesus, lady, are you kidding me? And the photographer is laying face down on the tarmac getting arrested because you thought you saw something that you didn't see.
Didn't give him an apple.
You didn't even ask him a question. You didn't even ask, like, hey, dude, what are you doing? I'm taking a picture. What do you think I'm fucking doing?
Yeah.
I have to be very careful with what I say on an airplane too, because I'm like, that's my livelihood up there. That's my equipment.
Oh yeah.
Be very careful. What I think about is I know my bag's heavy. So someone's like, would you like me to get it? Or can I move it? I'm like, no, I'll move it. It's very heavy, but it's also my camera equipment, It's like, it's fragile. And if you say fragile,
7 feet from, yeah.
Yeah, but if you say fragile, they think maybe you need to do it because it's something else. But it's like, no, don't touch my fucking bag. I don't really care.
Sir, can I help you with your bag? Don't touch it.
No, first off, if the bin is already fucking closed, do not open the bin. There's a reason that you close a bin. They tell you, the flight attendants say, close the bin if it's full. So that people, they sit there and they start opening bins.
That's
and then
my
they
favorite,
start moving people's shit around.
The plane starts with all the bins open for a reason. And then they're closed as they get full. And then people still will open it, hoping they can squeeze something in.
Oh, there's still space. Hold on. Let me smash your shit out of the way.
And if it's that small, just put it under your seat.
Right. And if you have a bomb,
Don't get on the plane.
don't get on the plane. Do something else. All right, Steven, this is episode number 12. Yeah, I'm Jared. Who are you again, Steven?
Steven.
You're Steven. I heard last week that someone said that you whispered at the end of the show, and I didn't hear it, you asshole.
What did I say? I don't even remember. I
Goodbye.
usually just say bye.
Yeah.
I usually do that.
But I didn't hear you say bye, or I would have said bye first.
You might have ended
Last.
the recording.
I would have been like, no, stop saying goodbye. All right, bye Steven. Bye. Bye. No, bye. Bye.